Rebecca Costa is a sociologist who offers a genetic explanation for current events, emerging trends, and individual behavior. A thought leader and provocative new voice in the world of Thomas Friedman, Malcolm Gladwell, and Jared Diamond. Costa examines the big picture, tracing everything from terrorism, crime on Wall Street, epidemic obesity, and upheaval in the Middle East to evolutionary forces. So something caught my attention, a lot caught my attention, but something caught my attention. You were talking about how the Mayan civilization became extinct. And you said there were sacrifices and sacrifices until they ended up, because they didn't understand the drought, the increasing drought, they ended up throwing babies off of towers. And then you said, we're not doing that, but we're flying planes into towers. And then you left us, you said, think about that. So I would like you to tell us what this evokes for you.
Well, in my book's divided into three sections. The first section is to go back over history and see what the relationship is between complexity and the collapse of civilizations. Is there a point at which the complexity of the problems that we have to solve exceed the cognitive capabilities that we've evolved to that point in time? So one way to look at it is there's two clocks. One clock every time the hand moves, it's human progress, and it's 1 picosecond have gone by, right? According to Eric Schmidt, the CEO of Google, we're adding as much data every 2 minutes as we did from the dawn of man to 2003. Every 2 minutes. New knowledge, new methodologies are coming at us in literally picoseconds. The second clock is human evolution. It's the rate at which this apparatus can develop new capabilities, new cognitive capabilities, new appendages to be able to run my nav system, text, and drive at the same time. Lord knows I need those right now, and they're not coming for a couple billion more years. And so what happens is that progress at some point moves beyond the capabilities that humans have evolved to that point in time, including the complexity of their social systems, including the complexity of the problems that they must tackle. So in the case of the Mayans, for example, I use them as an example, there are 3 symptoms which begin to occur before a society collapses. But by the way, in my book, I talk about not just the Mayans, but the Romans, the Khmer Empire, and other empires as well, because we see a similar trend. And I'm not interested in what is the cataclysmic event that pushes them off the cliff. I'm interested in the slow drive toward the cliff and why they didn't turn the wheel. Because I think that we see what problems we're dealing with, whether it's climate change, terrorism, pandemic viruses, overfishing the oceans, national debt, global debt. It goes on. And by the way, every country has the same list of problems. So at some point, a light bulb should be going on in our head that this isn't a country problem. It's not a domestic issue. This is a species-wide issue. What more proof do we need? You can't go to a single country and not find that their governments are wrestling with the same things that the government in the United States are wrestling with. So if we use the Mayan civilization as an example, we see that there are 3 symptoms that occur prior to the collapse of a civilization. The first thing is they become gridlocked. They know what their most dangerous problems are, and they have some capability of solving them, but they don't get on top of them. The second thing that happens is they become very confused about what are beliefs and what are facts. And the third one, which is a logical outcome of that, is that public policy becomes irrational. And then collapse ensues. Those are the 3 symptoms that occur way before the ultimate event that's going to cause collapse. We can think about these problems as being like planes stacking up in the air and all trying to land on the same runway. Eventually, one of them's going to get you. I don't really care, and I don't think the people walking around on the planet care what that ultimate thing that's going to get you is. So what we should be wary of is when we hit that gridlock, when the leaders become gridlock and they know what the problems are but they can't take action, when we start to see that there's a mass confusion about what are the facts, the empirical facts, and what are just beliefs and opinions, and then we see public policy being shaped on beliefs and opinions, then we are going the way of the Mayans. So the example that I use with the Mayans is for 3,000 years, they knew that they had a very tenuous relationship with water. They needed rainfall in order to grow the civilization, grow enough food. And so it wasn't the Mayan temples that were impressive to me. It was the fact that they built massive reservoirs. No one had ever even undertaken the kinds of reservoirs that they had built for their time. They built underground cisterns to store water, to keep it from evaporating, stored food in these underground cisterns as refrigeration. They practiced water conservation, crop rotation, all the things that we use today. But the drought persisted. And then you can see that over the first 1,500 years, 2,000 years, the Mayan civilization, they practiced fetishism, but they were also building these reservoirs and the cisterns, and they were using man-made, empirically based remedies. But you see, after about 1,500, 2,000 years, they make a turn and they begin they stop building reservoirs. They stop using the cisterns, and they escalate the sacrifices they were making. At first they were sacrificing captured slaves, then they move on to the old and the infirm, young virgins, and just before the Mayan collapse, there is evidence that they did nothing to conserve water whatsoever, and they had relied strictly on sacrificing newborn, unspoiled infants as a remedy to their disaster. Now, we can see that every society makes this turn. When they're thriving, they are pursuing man-made, rational remedies along with making an accommodation for beliefs. Think about human beings. When we don't have information, we have to switch over to beliefs. We only have 2 baskets we can choose from. But there comes a point in which the pursuit of facts and public policy based on facts is abandoned, and public policy becomes irrational. And when it does, that is the prelude to collapse.
Well, I think the Watchman's Rattle is the most important book that I've read in a long time.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you.
I mean it. And I don't read a lot. I mean, I read a lot about the people I interview, but I didn't know when I read it that I was going to meet you. And I think it's a very important book because of the matter of the difference between beliefs and facts.
Yes, we've not addressed the fact that there is confusion. And by the way, I'm on talk radio. I'm on a syndicated talk radio program. And originally I thought about going on NPR because there are more people dealing with facts on NPR than there are on AM radio. But the more I listened to AM radio, and I was listening to Rush Limbaugh and Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity and the people that have the biggest ratings in the United States, I realized that's where I had to go. I had to go on AM radio and try to balance these highly skilled hosts. They're very talented. They have an ability I do not have, and I don't think I can ever get it. They're very talented. They can talk for 2 and 3 hours and never mention one fact. But they're entertaining, and it feels like they're facts. There's like a feeling they're telling me something, but really it's all opinions. And I'm fascinated with that talent. I'm jealous of it. I can't do that. I don't have those skills as a talk show host. I bring people on and I'm trying to drill down to what do we really know? Not what do we think we know. Exactly. Not what somebody told us we know. You know, what do we really know? In fact, in just recently, these presidential debates, I had to do a debrief with John King of CNN on the vice presidential debate. So I watched the debate on CNN, on MSNBC, Fox, and I think one other channel. And it was interesting because each one of them had a person called a fact checker. Yes. At the bottom it says fact check. Okay. And then they'd switch over to some guy who had a lot of data and was talking. But all 4 fact checkers had different information. And I went, wow, how am I going to talk about this on the radio with any credibility at all? And I could only do what the site Real Clear Politics does. I love that site, by the way. I go to it regularly because they'll post every single poll and then give you an average. We're at a point right now where you have to go to so many sources. But who has time to do that? People are working 2 and 3 jobs to eat and, you know, get their kids through school. Who's going to be able to sift through all that data? And so it makes us very vulnerable as a society.
This is very dangerous.
It's a dangerous time for us because we are vulnerable to false prophets in a time that we've never been more vulnerable. Because
but it's always beliefs that have taken people down.
It is when we've abandoned the pursuit of truth and fact, and when we've quelled those people like Galileo, who try to, you know, we've persecuted fact givers all throughout human history, and we must not let that happen now. We must not. We know better than that. You know, we are better than that. And now with the internet and social media, to me, the people that have the facts are getting lost. They're getting lost in all the noise. The noise is not good for us because it's making it very difficult to discern what is real and what has been packaged for us to consume. And this is why you have very sophisticated investors who have been in the market for many, many decades suddenly turning over their life savings to someone like Bernie Madoff. Mm-hmm. Those weren't mom and pop people. They weren't like me with a couple $100 in savings. These were people that had been in the market for many, many years. Why would they do that? Because 60 Minutes just ran a program, last week, that these large pension funds are investing in super complex derivatives that they cannot understand. They look like something a physicist would deal with every day. So it's happening everywhere. I mean, we really are, we're overwhelmed and we're succumbing to complexity, and it's made it very, very difficult.
Solutions.
Well, one definition of complexity is, it's one from Harvard University, it's the one I like, is that there are more wrong solutions than there are right ones. And the number of wrong ones are exponentially growing. That just basically means that as time moves on, as every minute goes on and we're getting as much data as we did from the dawn of mankind to 2003, my odds of picking the right fact, my odds of picking the right solution are exponentially decreasing. So the environment that I am adapting to now is a high failure rate environment. Now, so I'm trying to survive in a high failure rate environment where there's going to be more wrong options than right options. But fortunately, we have examples and models where you can still succeed with high rates of failure. Venture capital happens to be one of them. For example, with venture capitalists, I happen to be out in California, and I'll tell you, they're all very, very successful. But they're not really experts at success. They're experts at failure, because for every 100 companies they invest in, they only expect maybe 10 or 15 to do well. But those companies will do so well that they'll dwarf the losses. We may very well be living in a time where we're going to have more failures than successes. So if that is the case, you have to diversify your solutions. Any single solution, any leader, any head of any corporation, any head of a department, any head of a social service organization that comes in and says, this is the solution to our problem, is wrong. And I can prove it to you. During the Gulf oil spill, we had a time-sensitive, mission-critical problem. And what did we do? We went in there with one solution, right? And we said, we're going to drop this box on that hole and that'll take care of it. And then we waited 30 days. That didn't work. And then we said, we're going to drill from the side and relieve some of the oil so that it doesn't get to the surface. And then we waited another 30 days. Meanwhile, every night we were watching these Hiroshima cloud-looking things, of oil coming out of the ground, and it looked like it was never going to stop. And finally, the third solution was static kill, and they were able to stop the hole. But that took a long time to get to. In the meantime, we were creating one of the worst ecological disasters in American history. Now compare that to the Chilean miners. Same thing. Mission critical, time sensitive, catastrophic problem. The Chilean miners, the Chilean government did not sit there and say, well, let's come up with the ultimate solution and try that, and then go to the next one, and then go to the next one. While the problem was exponentially getting worse, they knew better than that. They took 16 rescue plans and put them into place. They collaborated. They had engineers from Germany coming in, geologists from UCLA. They brought everybody in to convene and work on the problem. And those 16 problems over time, no matter how much due diligence they had done, they wouldn't have been able to call the right rescue plan. Those 16 turned into 15 rescue plans, 14, 13, and as they moved forward, some of them showed that they would not prove that they wouldn't work. And even when they rescued every single miner, they were still using 2 rescue plans to get to them. So there you have 2 examples. One where we think like a linear left brain, right brain. We go, all right, we're going to try this one, this one, this one, this one. Meanwhile, the problem's getting away from us, and it's exponentially getting worse. And here's another one where we act like a venture capitalist and we say we can't pick the right solution. We're going to have a lot of wasted energy, a lot of wasted time, but we'll be successful, and every miner will come out of that hole alive.
The success of failure.
The success of failure.
Or the end of the hierarchy of solution.
That's
I mean,
right.
There's just
the idea of
the
picking
top
one
solution.
No,
Yeah.
and we see this in our government right now. They look at the debt and they say, all right, we're going to give everybody a $200 stimulus package. That ought to do it. Are you kidding me? The problems we face right now, they can't be answered in a presidential debate in 20 seconds. I wanted one of these politicians to say, are you joking? You're giving me 20 seconds, really, to talk about health care for everyone, the poor, the rich, the middle class? It can't be done. We have to come to terms with the world we're living in. Very high rates of failure. And so we understand in our financial portfolios that diversification is a hedge against sudden changes in the market. You buy stocks, bonds, gold, real estate, and you try to spread it all around so that you can retire, right? But when it comes to solutions to mission critical problems or large problems, we just want like some quick slogan and we want it to all go away. No, diversification and diversity is nature's hedge against sudden and radical changes in the environment. So any drive toward singularity is a drive toward extinction, toward catastrophe. And we must get away from that. So this idea that we're going to be globalized, this globalized economy, I don't want anyone to ever use the word globalization again. I wanted them to use homogenization, which is a more accurate depiction of what is going on in global economies. Prior to World War II, Germany's economy, Japan's economy, China's economy, all looked radically different. We had diverse economies. Therefore, if you had a bad subprime mortgage policy in one country, you weren't going to take the whole world down. There's the lesson. But no, now we're homogenizing. Why are we doing that? Because it makes it easier to do business in every country if all their stock markets and all their currencies and everybody works the same. And so what do? We have Romney saying they're currency manipulators, and I'm all, let them manipulate away. Don't try to make everybody the same economy, because that is going against diversification. Survival depends on diversity.
Let's bring this conversation around with a poetic note. Tell people why your book is called The Watchman's Rattle.
Oh, I love the title of the book. Yeah, I did. In earlier times, we had policemen that protected battleships and old buildings and communities. And they would walk around. They didn't carry any weapons with them. I discovered this early on when I was doing research. But they had a wooden rattle. And the wooden rattle, I don't have one with me today, but they would swing it and it would go da-da-da-da, really loud. And when people heard the watchman, it was a summons to come help him, because enemies were attacking or somebody was being burglarized. And so this was a call. It was a loud call to action. It was a summons for help. And I'm not the kind of person who thinks I have the answer. I don't have that ego. I don't think I have the answers for everyone. I think I had an insight, and it's my job now to give that to everyone that I meet and everyone who wants to listen and who feels confused about the world and the direction that we're going in today, and to give that to them and to say, come help. Come help. No matter what it is that you can do. Even if it's volunteer, just one day a week, even if it's get on and do a blog, you know, participate in the solution. Because it's beyond me. You know, I am touring half the year, going out and talking to groups large and small, and I feel terrible about the fact that my generation has allowed this to happen. I feel miserable about the problems that I'm leaving behind, and it is unacceptable to me. And anyone over the age of 50 years old should be out there fixing this right now. It is not right to turn this over to young people and say, well, they're smarter and they have texting and social media and they'll fix those problems. These are problems that we made, we allowed to have happen. And so all the parents that are out there that are listening to this podcast, I want them to get activated, because it is unacceptable to leave this behind for your children. You know, and if I can get on a plane every other day and get out there, they can too. And so the Watchman's Rattle is me clanking that rattle and saying, please come and help, participate in the solution.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.